Hello. Today I'm going to show you how to read data from an external file in Java using file reader and buffer reader, and the method I'm going to show you will work when we don't know how many records are in our data file. So before we can actually write the Java code that will read the data from the file, it's really important that we first of all have a data file and that we understand the structure of this file. So I've set up here a NetBeans project called DataFileReadExample, and right now it's just an empty main class. So let's go ahead and make the data file first before we try and read it in. So I'm going to flip over to Windows Explorer here. Here is the folder, the project folder called DataFileReadExample that I created, or that NetBeans created for me. So I'm going to open that up. Inside that, we'll see a couple of folders. We want to find the SRC. Open that up, and we'll find our package folder. So see, this kind of corresponds to our file structure over here that's open in NetBeans. So inside our SRC, which is in NetBeans listed as source packages, we have another folder called DataFileReadExample. That package is open in NetBeans. So if I open this folder, I'll find my Java class. This is where I want to put my data file. So I'm going to right click, make a new text document, and I'm going to call this data. So it's data.txt, that's the file extension. The file extension is important, and so is the name. So let's open this up, just using Notepad, and add some data to our data file. So our program is going to read in a list of names and ages, and then output the ages in dog years. So and Control S save. So this data file has 4 records in it. We have Austin, who's 19, James, who's 28, Nova, who's 3, and Liz, who's 93. Okay, each record is composed of 2 fields, the name and the age. So it's really important to understand the structure of this file, because we will need to read in one record at a time, and when we're reading in a record, we're going to read in each field one at a time. So let's have a look at how we can actually read this in. So we'll head back to our Java. In NetBeans, you'll notice that my data.txt has appeared because it's in that source package. So the first thing that we'll do is some imports. So underneath the package line, let's go ahead and import java.io.bufferedReader. And we're going to import java.io.fileReader, and we're also going to import java.io.ioException. So those are our 3 imports, and right now they haven't been used. That's why they're underlined in yellow. So now we can go ahead and set up our main method to read in our data file. I'm going to declare some variables at the top. We want to declare a variable for each field in the file. So I have a name, and then I have an age. So I'm going to declare a string placeholder called sh, and then an int age. Okay, now this program is going to display the ages of each person in dog years. So let's declare another variable for dog years. And then that's it for now. So the operation of opening a file has a chance of failing. So we need to use a new structure in Java called a try-catch statement. And what the try-catch statement does, it allows us to try to do something that might fail and cause an exception. And if that exception happens or is thrown, then we can catch that exception in our catch statement. So this is what a try-catch statement looks like. So we'll try the code between these 2 braces, and we'll catch a type of exception here. If that exception is caught, then we'll execute the code inside these braces. So we're going to try to open the connection to the file. And to do that, we're going to use a class called FileReader that we imported up there. I'm going to call it FR. That's equal to a new FileReader. Now, the constructor of the FileReader class wants the path to our data file, our data.txt. And this path is built from the src folder. So it's also important to understand the structure of our NetBeans project. If the file was directly on my C drive, for instance, I could put C data.txt. So that would work if there was a file on the C, directly on the C drive called data.txt. This is not the best way to do it though, because that's only going to work if we run this code on a computer that has a C drive and that file exists on the C drive. It's much better to point this file path to this file, this data.txt, which is within my NetBeans project. So we're going to build the path here, starting from our source folder. So let's just open this Windows Explorer again. So here's my project folder, DataFileReadExample. So here's my src. So this is where we're going to start building our path from. So I'm going to start with src, and then anytime I need to go into a folder, I'm going to use 2 backslashes. So inside the src, there's another folder called DataFileReadExample. This is the same as our package line up here. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste that because that's the name of our package. And then we need to go inside that folder. And there is data.txt. So now we can say, okay, once you've got inside the src folder, inside DataFileReadExample folder, then open this file, datafile.txt, or data.txt, sorry. So this operation, this connection to the file, might not work if the file moves, or if it has a different name, or I don't have my path quite right. It could throw an exception, and the type of exception that it would throw is an IO exception. So in our catch statement, we would catch that IO exception. So that's the data type, and the name that I've given it is E. And all we're going to do in our catch is just print out that there was an error. And we want to do this because when we run our code, if the file can't be found, we want to see that there was an error. If we don't print it out, we won't know what the error is. All right. So if I go ahead and run this now, nothing should happen. And nothing does happen. That's great. But let's say I messed up my file path here. Let's say I told it to look for data1.txt. So if I go ahead and run this now, you'll see that the file reader tried to open this file, which doesn't exist, and this error was caught. This IO exception was caught and printed out in our system. So it says error java.io.file.found exception, and it tells me the file that we're trying to open, and it says the system cannot find it. So if you see this, you know that you have a problem with your data file path here that you need to fix. So the file reader opens the connection to the file, and then we're going to use another class called BufferedReader to actually read the data through the connection. So we'll declare a new BufferedReader called BR. And it accepts a file reader. Okay, so now we're kind of set up. We have a connection to the file. We can begin to read the data that is in it. And to read this, we're going to use a while loop because we don't know how many records are in the file. So to control the loop, I'm going to declare a Boolean flag called end of file. And we use this to tell the loop to stop once we've hit the end. So at this point, once we've created our buffered reader, we are not yet at the end of the file. So we'll make end of file equal to false, because we're at the start of the file right now. So when we open this connection to our file, we essentially have, you can think of it like the cursor blinking right there, right at the very top, ready to read in all of the data. So while we are not at the end of the file, we'll continue to loop. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is read in the first field. So the first field in our data file is the name, so we'll type name equals br.readline. So br.readline is the method we're going to use that will actually grab the data from the file and bring it into our program. So this takes Austin and puts it in the name variable, and then essentially moves the cursor down to the next line so that the next time we call br.readline, it will read in 19. Okay. However, we need to check something. We need to check if that readline method returned null. Because if it returns null, that means we're at the end of the file. That means we've looped down past 93 and our cursor's down here somewhere. And we've read in something that doesn't exist. So null means it doesn't exist. So if this name is null, that means we're at the end of the file and we want to end the loop. So otherwise, so that means the name is not null, so we've actually read something in. Here we'll process the rest of the record. So in this case, we'll read in the age. We'll parse it. So we need to do a little math with it. And then we'll run our calculation. So they say that 1 human year is 7 dog years. So dog years is equal to age times 7. And then what we'll do is print this out. So system.out.println. So we'll put the name, and then we'll add a tab stop, and then the age in dog years. And I'll add a new line at the end of that. Actually, I don't need that because I'm using print line. Okay, and that's it. So this loop will continue to read in data. So first we read in Austin. Austin is not null, so we're in the else clause, which means we read in 19 as a string. Then we parse it to an integer. We multiply 19 by 7. That would be stored in dog years. And then we're going to print out the name and the age that we've calculated for dog years. So then the loop runs again. We read in the next name, check if it's null. If it's not null, then we can read in the age, parse it, and calculate it and print it out. Loop again, read in the name, read in the age, print it out. Loop again, read in the name, read in the age, print it out. Loop again, we're down here, we read in the name. After 93, the next thing we read is null. So name is null. We're at the end of the file, which means that the loop will stop. And we can then close the connection to the file. So that's it. So we better run this and make sure it works. There we go. So in dog years, Austin, who is 19 human years old, if Austin were a dog, he would be 133 years old. Nova is my dog. She's 3 in human years, so that means she's about 21 in dog years. That's it. So that's how we can read data